Luis Salazar Jurado. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
A lot of people talk about semantic SEO, but what I've realized is that they mean very different things to different people, as many terms in SEO. How do you define it, and what does it not mean to you? Like, what do people get wrong?
Let's start about let's start with what people get wrong. Semantic SEO doesn't mean uh, the meaning of the words in the dictionary, because semantic search engines can have a different meaning for the same word, especially if you combine those words in different order. For instance, synonym or antonyms. Even though you're talking about a topic or you're mentioning a topic, the search engine can use a different, it depends on the context, can provide different results. Semantic SEO is nothing more than structure the information to make it easier to understand for search engines. So you have a competitive advantage against other sites with more content, worse structure, and you simplify all those signals and make it easier for an LLM or any bot to visit your page, get the information in a structured way, and you have extra boost or extra ranking ability to show up on Google search results, because your content, the cost to understand what your content is about, is lower than the competitors.
What do you think people that come, well, we all sort of came from a traditional SEO background if we've been doing this long
Mhm.
enough. And the switch is a journey. What do you think that people that are still just way too in the old ways get fundamentally wrong about maybe this new concept or framework of working?
Well, the traditional SEO approach, I would say, for the last 2 decades was match keywords to document, which means you do the research, keyword research, to identify a keyword with a lot of search volume, and then you create the document in order to match that keyword or that term. For decades, it works pretty well because, in my opinion, the internet was way smaller. Second of all, there were less noise in the internet, and it was easy for Google to rank this kind of information because at the end of the day, it's a match between the keyword and the document. But over the last decade, let's say, uh, very smoothly, and now is accelerating. It's very hard for a search engine to understand just or match keyword to document. Now it's query to answer, which means, first of all, the queries that people type on Google are way longer than 10 years ago. Now you have sentences, complete sentences. How are you going to match a complete sentence with one keyword? And then I find that document on the internet to match that term. So that's why it's queries to document, because query to answers, because the answer could be in a tiny section of a document rather than in the whole document. So Google is have to parse, match, and combine all those billions or probably trillions of terms, not necessarily 2, 3 terms, but sentences, with all the information on the internet. And on top of that, we have also evolved from 10 blue links to now several interfaces. And on top of that, universal search, knowledge panels, all this stuff. So maybe the information nowadays, you want to consume an image, or you want to consume a video, or you want to consume a short, or you want to consume a PDF, or you want to consume a website. And if that is not enough, you now have AI interfaces. So you have to communicate in a different layer Because if you're trying to match the old system, keywords to document, you're missing the whole picture. So that would be the takeaway is for those people who are still thinking like, do the keyword research, find the keyword, then put the keyword in the document, and you think you're gonna rank. It doesn't work that way anymore. It's more like holistic approach. How are you gonna structure the content to make it easier for LLM to understand what your page is about, what your site is about, what do you sell, what category of information are you targeting, which target market, what users. Because a semantic search engine can only group three things: queries, users, and documents. Queries is what what users type in Google. Users are the humans that do the search. And documents could be any piece of information on the internet. Could be a PDF, an image, a video, a short, any kind of information. And Google have to match all those three. So that would be my answer to your question.
Yeah. Like, I think there's been a clear evolution from, okay, yeah, before you could one keyword, put it on the page, and depending where you were, it just ranked, and you didn't have to do anything else, and it was so easy and wonderful. Like, as it gets more competitive, and this changes for different countries and languages and whatever, like, it's not always, sometimes it's still really easy. But then we started getting these keyword clusters that you could think of as maybe lots of keywords that are written slightly different, but they sort of mean the same thing, because if you Google them, you get the same index, you get the same search results. So you could arguably say, okay, these things all mean the same thing, and people would spread all of those different variations out on the page and try to win the cluster. But then you have all the stuff that maybe doesn't show up on the keyword research tool, but that people are actually trying to search for, and that's where these longer phrases and sentences sort of show up. I feel that's the biggest gap at the page level, is this extra information, what to add and what to not add, that is not easily findable in the tools that most people use. And then the next part is when you're just not focusing at the page level, you have to also look at the website and the connections between every single page of the website and what you're trying to do. Can you talk a little bit about how you go about finding that extra information that's not obvious, that should go on the page, the process you use to decide what I'm going to put on this? And then maybe we can skip to how do we connect things at a website level?
That's a great follow-up question. Over the last 4 or 5 years, what I do is, first of all, I spend way more time with the client or with the customer in order to understand much better what they're really selling, their category of information, their competitors, the message to the market, and the terms they say they want to rank for, but in reality is a different idea. So why? Because we as an SEOs have been focused probably for a long time about the informational tools and not necessarily and the information of the business itself. And now brand is very important. Let's connect brand searches. Do people know about the brand? Because now it's a ranking factor. The bigger the number the brand searches, the better the higher the probability you're going to rank better, because Google identify you're a real brand.
Everything is better. You just fly. Like people who have good branding, everything's easy.
So you have brand searches. On top of that, you have to think more broadly and holistically, because all the signals you have to communicate, not only in your page, but also in your social media, and all the profiles that are going to talk about you have to talk and provide information about the same context you want to rank for. If, for instance, if you are an insurance, every word which is not related with insurance, it is demoting your overall value. So every single word have to be, let's say, accurate, related to the topic you want to rank for, because the search engine might confuse. Because again, a semantic search engine is only trying to understand the text, but also it's trying to categorize your site and your brand in on the internet. And on top of that, you sell a product or a service, and they have to let's say make sure. This is called, in technical terms, entity disambiguation, because in the same way that let's say a puma it could be an animal, the name of a brand of a car, all this stuff, or excuse me, the name of a sport brand. You have to provide the context. Or Apple is this, let's say, the more simple example, which is Apple. It could be a brand, it could be a fruit. So if you type Apple, the more likely it's going to show you the brand. But the next word you're going to type is going to disambiguate from the brand. Or eat an apple is going to clearly produce the universal data, and it's more likely that you as a user want to eat a piece of fruit. So if you have a website that is trying to rank for Apple recipes, it's more likely that the terms that surround the apple are going to be recipe, cooking, all this stuff. I'm not going to mention the Apple brand. So that the way of thinking allows you to, let's say, make it easier for the search engine, because at the end of the day, you're going to be let's say, in a race with other brands and other sites competing for the same terms, and the easier it is for them to understand what you sell, the better, because everything could be summarized at cost. There is a cost in the loading time, in the let's say, I'm trying to understand your page, the number of words. Everything is cost for the search engines, and the more simple, the faster, the easier you make it for them, you're going to get as a reward better rankings.
Okay, so what you're saying is it's important to be very clear what the words on your page mean, so Google can classify you accurately. So it has to be very
Exactly.
sure that entity, which entity is it, if it shares a word and things like that. Traditionally, that has been attacked by, having related entities or LSI keywords, which is basically the same thing in the loose way that people use those terms. And it sort of means you need to have enough words on the page to make it clear what you're talking about and what you're not. And correlation tools have historically done the job of telling you sort of how many you need and maybe which ones you need and whatnot. How does that approach of sprinkling maybe somewhat randomly these words on a page, differ to the process that you're using now?
Well, to give you an example, it's not only about the words and the location of the words and the order of the words. It's also about the visual, how the page is designed. For instance, today, thankfully, after 3 months, a project I work with, they changed the heading H1 on top of the image, because for a long time has been the image on top of the heading H1. So you landed on the page, and the first thing you saw was the image. You have to scroll down to see the heading H1. And now, thankfully, the heading H1 is on top of the image, which means this teeny tiny change, which is it's been spread in the whole content because it was a template. Now for a search engine, it's way easier to understand what the page is about, because first of all, the heading H1 is visible, is above the fold. Second of all, the H1 is optimized. And both for the user and for the bots, the cost to understand what the page is about is lower, because just loading the page just reading the heading H1, you're going to understand what the content is about. However, even though you search for something and you land on that page, you have to scroll to get more information about that document Google present to you. So these teeny tiny details matter. And if you compound that in thousands of pages or even tens of thousands of pages, the impact is going to be bigger. Why? Because let's use a comparison here. Traditional SEO before, let's say, semantic SEO said, put the keyword as close to the left as possible. Why? Because it's going to be the first thing that the bots see. And it makes sense, because if it's both visible for the user and for the bot, in the old traditional mindset, you were thinking about matching keywords to document, and it makes sense. People even force the title and the heading H1 even to put the keyword on the left, even though the meaning is not that clear. However, nowadays, the keyword or the terms you want to rank on should be there, but it should be surrounded by other predicates and terms related to that entity you want to rank for. And on top of that, all the attributes, all the text surrounding should be complementary and add further information about the terms, because again, you are going to be you're in a kind of race, a never-ending race, where your content is going to be evaluated against other content on the internet. And imagine that some SEO nowadays is a race to where each one of us should compete to be understood the fastest way possible. How are you going to structure the page and organize the information to be understood the fastest way possible, both for the user and for the machine? That would be the best answer I can give it to you.
Yeah, when Korai sort of made public his framework, or maybe made it more popular, the biggest concept for me, which I found so interesting, was the cost of retrieval concept. And it's sort of everything is around that, the cost of your website being cheaper than the cost of non-retrieval. So it means it's more expensive to Google to go find this information elsewhere instead of getting it all from your website. And that's sort of how you get that advantage. You mentioned that the visual organization of the page also matters. Now, for a user, that makes sense. Historically, Google has been trying over the years to understand pages and content as humans do, although it sounds simple, but it's not from a bot's perspective. What are you seeing now on that end, on how design changes the perception that a bot like Google might have around your content?
This is a great follow-up question. In fact, this morning, I shared an article with a client, which is an e-commerce, and Google, or let's say, I don't remember the source, but Google have now a bot in Chrome where they don't even have to render or crawl the page directly in your browser. They are gonna evaluate your site, and they're gonna trigger a bunch of algorithms, and they're gonna say if the probability that your landing page is an e-commerce, because they want to dissect and categorize your site and your pages, and again, let's say in a bucket of information. So let's say if we think like an algorithm, the easiest and the fastest way possible to understand if your page is an e-commerce or not, it would be the price, the images of product, and then verbs related to buying or prices or terms related to the action of buying stuff. So what would be, in terms of cost of retrieval, imagine that a bot have to render the whole page, let's say 2 megabytes or 3 megabytes or 4 megabytes, only to understand if that page is an e-commerce or not. However, on the other side, in Google Chrome, with a fraction of those megabytes and in less time, Google can understand if your page is e-commerce or not, just based on the text. Do those let's say in that page show up the word buy now, or add to the cart, the price, the image, an alt attribute. And from a cost of retrieval point of view, from a business to understand if this page is e-commerce or not, it makes total sense. And on top of that, the visuals. Imagine an e-commerce, you have to scroll to see the product. It doesn't make sense. Now the best e-commerce have the message and the price and everything above the fold, because first, it's faster for the user, and second, it's faster for the bot to understand that that page is a real site that sells stuff. So if you combine the visual part plus the cost of retrieval part, or let's say from a human perspective, you walk in a street and all of a sudden, either you look left or right, you can identify what is a restaurant, what is a bar, what is a shop. There are signals there that you visually can understand. In the same way, an algorithm can parse a web page by blocks and identify, okay, this is the heading H1, this is the image, this is the price, this is the bottom, add to cart. And this is the, let's say, a message with discount 30%. Enough signals for a bot to understand this page sells something. That would be the combination of both cost of retrieval and visual semantics.
I feel e-commerce stores that are somewhat, that are real business, they will be okay from that point of view, because like there might be micro optimizations, but for them to be classified in the wrong bucket, like the templates that are used usually have all the imported buying information and all that stuff at the top. I think maybe, and this probably must be like I haven't seen what you described as, meaning the paper or the article or whatever it was. I imagine it works under a probability where it's okay, we are confident enough this is an e-commerce page, and maybe all those signals you described, plus maybe product schema, just basic product schema and things like that, they all go into this sort of classification. And I'm pretty sure that you're right, that they will try to run the cheap algorithm first before maybe the LLM evaluating the screenshot with image recognition software to try to figure out this thing. Yeah, that it's quite interesting how Google is moving on this path of being willing to spend more resources to try to get things right. But the websites that will win are those that can signal what they are with just being cheaper, just requiring less effort. When we think about, I'm just going to throw a term out there, like semantic triples is talked about a lot. And I've heard you say that they are overrated. Help me understand, what are your thoughts on semantic triples, how to use them, and how people get them wrong?
Well, a semantic triple, first of all, by definition, is a subject, predicate, object, or three words that are going to define what we're, let's say, talking about, or are going to define the universe of data that we want to rank for. You can use semantic triples to rank, but if you don't provide the right context, it's not that powerful. For instance, going back to the previous conversation we have about the algorithm that understand if this is an e-commerce or not. If an e-commerce, the semantic triple will be buy, product, and then the price. For instance, buy jewelry, and then the user could type like buy gold jewelry, or buy gold earrings, buy gold necklace, buy gold, whatever. This is a semantic triple. First of all, you have to search for how will users type the queries on Google. The queries like buy gold ring online. Okay, you have the triple buy gold ring online, and then you can put that triple in a page, but then all the signals surrounding that terms have to be in alignment. You have to put an image of a gold ring in the page, and then all the information related to that product have to be in the same, let's say, have to make sense. But on top of that, the brand of the site that have that landing page have to be categorized as an online jewelry to rank for that semantic triple, because if not, it doesn't make sense semantically. So you have to create all those connections. A semantic triple, it makes sense, but you have to categorize the site overall, and then you have to define what the page is about. Because let's say you have 1,000 gold rings. How are you going to differentiate each one of them? It doesn't make sense. Or let's say you have a site with 2,000 pages and 1,000 pages are gold rings. Okay, it's likely you're going to rank because the 50% of your site is, let's say, talking about gold rings. However, let's say you have a small online jewelry company and you're trying to sell online 10 gold rings, and your site is 1,000 pages. It's very unlikely you're going to rank for that semantic triple, because in proportion, 10 pages out of 1,000, unless your brand is very powerful, it's very unlikely you're going to rank. Let's use the analogy of a CV. If you have been working 20 years and in your CV, your professional skills are digital, it doesn't make sense that you're going to position yourself as a professional from a different skills, which is not digital, because for 20 years you have been using digital skills. You cannot rank for bricklayers. So you have to design everything in place, and everything have to make sense, not only from the semantic point of view, but also from the overall structure of the page. So it is, but before, to go back to the analogy of the traditional SEO thinking, which is a technique that is now used in, let's say, some very competitive industries. Before semantic SEO, you can rank any site with different kind of content for different topics and everything else. Now it's way harder to rank a blog or a news, any kind of news, unless you define really well the category you wanna rank. Because if not, the algorithm doesn't understand what your page is about. I mean, you're talking one day you're talking about economy, and the next day you're talking about society, and then you're talking about opinions. That's why it's very hard for, let's say, the traditional blogs to rank for something, because they were talking about everything, and articles mixed with opinions, and articles with breaking news, and articles with evergreen content, and you wonder why they have been demoted for, because the cost for a machine to understand what your page is about, what your key value is, very complicated.
If
Do you know
people
what I
want to
mean?
look into this, they could try to find something on the leak that was quite interesting, like the site radius score. Like I think that maybe defines that. I saw this. I remember for the maybe consciously for the first time, like 4 or 5 years ago. I was working with an e-commerce store. They sold um, room dividers, so big room dividers to you have a big space, like an open space, and you can't build a wall, but you want to make a like a small section, maybe in a classroom or an office or something like that, or give privacy to someone. And the properties that the room dividers had is they had acoustic panels, and it helped a little bit with acoustics. So, but the business then also wanted to sell acoustic panels, which are these things that you just paste on the walls to make the overall acoustics of a room better. And I thought it was going to be easy because we had good performance for the acoustic room dividers, and all the room divider pages talked about acoustics. But acoustic panels was considered something completely different, even though it shared the word acoustics or something like that. And we did the same work for that category page and those product pages, and they went nowhere. It took a while. After like a year or so, they popped up, but it wasn't right away because Google didn't understand that our website was, they weren't going to give us the benefit of the doubt on that. Like there was, no, you can't rank for that. You're good on this part where we know you are what you're about, but that thing we don't know. You're starting from scratch on that topic. So it's
Yeah.
not even such a recent thing. It's a thing that I think has been going on over time, and maybe now it's just stronger.
Yes, the thing is, we don't see the changes until they are so big that it's obvious. It's just right in front of us. So, and on top of that, Google is also, this is this is nothing new. I mean, Semantic SEO has been running for a long time. The thing is, most people are not still aware of that. I mean, it could be, let's say, a decade. But again, everything starts very smoothly and then it speed up. The same way that AI, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, ChatGPT was not even invented, let's say. And now you have Claude and ChatGPT, Perplexity. You have so many models, so many AI interfaces, because when a new concept is adopted, then everything is becoming fashionable. Then it's speed up. So, but again and again, I mean, talking about brand mentions and brand searches 2 3 years ago was kind of unthinkable. Now you see it in most interviews and articles. Why? Because, and on top of that, now in Search Console, Google recently include brand searches and non-brand searches, which means it's a metric for them to categorize brands in the same way that they can categorize any kind of information. And why? Because for them it's easier to say, okay, this is a real brand and this is not a real brand. So why Coca-Cola or other big brands keep doing advertising and keep, let's say, promoting themselves? So they are, those brands are always in the mind of the consumer. In the same way, if nothing more than this, the people who watch this, if only get increased brand search demand, increased brand mentions, increased brand signals, only with that, you're way ahead of the competitors, because most people still doesn't understand how important it is, the brand searches and the brand mentions. So you as an SEO are part of the team that you're part of the growth team, but of the also to contribute from the visual part, from the content part, from the strategic part. So now SEO is more like a strategic partner rather than just someone that ain't going to increase the traffic, because everything is holistically combined and integrated with the business itself.
We definitely have a much bigger role than before. There was this thing though, years ago, you could build a business from scratch purely based on SEO. Like that was a thing. I think nowadays it's way harder. Maybe you can still do it in some industries and some verticals, but it's not as common as before. Like so many businesses just were built purely based on SEO, but now you need the other stuff. Like it's sort of there. Well, you touched a little bit on AI. Like, what do you think about this whole thing of, are you doing anything different for AI visibility if you're even talking about that to clients, or is the process you're currently using sort of already cover what AI seems to be um, choosing or benefiting?
The core of the SEO is the same. At the end of the day, the LLMs and the software that is going to get the information from the internet, all they do is to gather different sources of information from different platforms on the internet, and then come up with the conclusion that you are a brand and you are a better brand than other in the competition. So let's say, let me give you an example. In the casino industry, there is a technique which is the canonical confusion attack, which is nothing more than make Google believe that that casino is not the real casino, it's a different casino. And Google's algorithm get confused, and it's very costly for them to understand if this is the real casino brand, and then they demote you. This is a real thing I've seen in one project I work with. And you can get 30-40% decrease in traffic for a few weeks or months until Google run again the expensive algorithm and make sure that you are the real brand, because your competitors cannot trigger canonical confusion time for a long time. It's very costly. So at the end of the day, in the previous SEO game, it would be like a DDO attack or a spam attack with links talking about Viagra, all this stuff. Now is canonical confusion attack. How are you going to protect against that? Well, making your brand more powerful and stronger signals. And one of the signals is communicating with AIs. You spread across the internet that your brand is a very powerful brand and is present in all the, let's say, more credible sources. And you repeat the message, because the moment you stop repeating the message, the AI interfaces do not trust you that much. That's what I'm doing nowadays. I mean, let me use an example that I would say all of us have experienced. There is a reason why the politicians are every single day showing up on the TV and on the social and the newspapers and everywhere. So you don't forget them. The message is repeated day after day after day after day. That would be my suggestion to SEOs. You have to repeat the message every day across all platforms to make sure God Google put you in a pedestal and you're the best. If not, someone else is gonna be in that position.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I think that's the biggest. You could. It's like the mention thing. Like it wasn't very clear how powerful they were for traditional search. Like you could suspect things, but AI really seems to like when you repeat the same thing in many different places. And if you do it right, in the sense that you really describe well what you're about and the differences you have compared to other people, that really helps for them to favor you over other brands when people are asking these sort of long-winded, massive, massive questions, very detailed to them. Maybe that, and having that same content that differentiates you and makes like a very good positioning on your website. Like you sort of need to have that. You needed it before to be a good business, but now it's even more important because of that. And then maybe the last part is just you really can't rely on JavaScript, because it seems those things don't render it at all.
Yes, I mean, I have a developer background, and now you see everywhere on the internet that even WordPress is, let's say, has been demoted as a alternative to create your site, because now you can get sites with Claude and all these new platforms that are gonna creating headless CMS. You don't need a database. You're not gonna be hacked. And there is a new wave of alternatives to create your sites, and I do believe that they are coming to stay. They're not going anywhere, because only the cost to maintain WordPress is going to be ridiculous compared to creating an HTML template with Claude on any other AI interface. They can code now for you. So why not articulate with words with a Claude interface? Okay, do this website with this look and feel and this design, and put this copy, and okay, and then upload this HTML to the server, all this stuff. You don't need a developer probably anymore in the foreseeable future. So things are changing.
There's always going to be people that use the tools better than others. Like there's people are still going to be around. Like I don't think too many jobs are going to, like there's still going to be people that are better at running those tools than others, or people that just don't want to. So I don't think they'll die out of, the whole professions will completely die. Maybe not in the near future.
I use the analogy of football. Is 11 players against 11 players. Only teeny tiny differences are the ones that differentiate one team from the other, and then one team wins and the other lose. So all of them know how to run, all of them know how to play. Is a little bit of a strategy, a little bit of physical strength, a little bit of capabilities individually, and then the combination of all the factors. And the Google is the referee, is the one who's going to decide, okay, it's okay or it's not okay, the goal, let's look at the repetition, all this stuff. So I use the analogy nowadays that SEO is more like a 24/7 never-ending football competition, and the team that rests too much time is not gonna be at the top.
And you just SEO the website so it's done.
Yeah, but you have to train the prompt, and you have to train all the models and everything else. And on top of that, I don't think the AI is going to overtake us, because the AI should know your client much better than you do. So AI by itself cannot be in the mind of the consumers, and the wants and needs of the consumer change over time. So let's say, let me think about an example. An AI it's very hard for an AI to understand when a woman want to buy a jewelry online, what they want, even though they type buy gold ring with so many around this price and this size for a wedding. I mean, the AI itself, what the woman really want, the AI is not gonna know. They're just gonna show up a bunch of products with that description. But it's very hard to define the shape. It's very hard to define the other signals that you as a consumer want in that product.
If we go back to the example, the one you're talking about now, like, let's say someone wants to, you've identified these words like buy gold ring online, and maybe there's that's sort of what describes the whole thing. But then you have people asking for what you just said, like, I want to buy this gold ring for a wedding, or I want to buy this gold ring for whatever other purpose. I want an everyday one. This is the engagement one. This is the one for a special occasion. So there's different use cases. How are you helping that business structure their category or collection pages and their product pages and their entity as a whole? So one, they're understood that they sell these gold rings online, or other jewelry maybe, but let's stick to one thing because that's sort of easier. And then what information are you putting on product pages versus what information are you putting on collection or category pages to sort of guide these things? Because there's many different terms, and they may be or topics or subtopics, and depends how you want to think about it.
I'm going to start from top to bottom. First of all, I have to make sure that the brand is understandable for Google, because what a coincidence, the name of the brand is the name of a butterfly, because the founder of the online jewelry company I work with, she was inspired by nature, and the name of the brand is the name of a butterfly. So I have to structure not only the e-commerce, but all the signals on social media and everything, that this is a brand, but it's not the butterfly. Second of all, the founder itself, it is a woman. We are creating content when she is on Instagram, Shorts, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere, and we are ranking their entity by the name to make sure this is a human and this is the founder of this brand. So I'm connected brand with a person, and let's say with a story about that woman, how she founded the company like 13 years ago. And all of that, we have to structure the Shopify site, and as you mentioned, collection and products. And now we have to connect the brand with the founder, with the collection, with the products. But so when people search for the brand, let's say most of the businesses in Spain, but they also have businesses in other countries in South America. And when people there are going to search for the brand, is more likely they're going to show up the butterfly, because the butterfly is from Brazil. So the thing is, as an SEO, we have to communicate from the brand signals, from the person signal, from the story, and then all that information have to be structured in order to publish it in all social media platforms. And then the collections are unique, and the product are structured like, let's say, in the same structure that Shopify uses. But now, in order to create entity disambiguation between the butterfly and the company, all the terms, we go granular in the collection and in the product. Why? Because the only way to differentiate for a semantic search engine, this is a brand and this is a butterfly. So the brand is talking about jewelry, gold, rings, prices, colors, shades, all this stuff. And that semantics as a bucket is going to differentiate from the butterfly, nature, location, and all this stuff. That's the way we are approaching this. But this is the same approach I use with all the people I work with, and in all brands, in all niches. Because first of all, Google have to categorize your brand. Then you have to increase the brand search demand, which means now we're using brand plus location, because they have shops here in Spain. Brand plus product, bracelets, rings, earrings, everything. And now we can expand. So we let's say promotions, special occasions, all this stuff. And we are creating a bag of terms associated with the brand. And that, let's say, that information is going to dissect the brand from the name of the entity of the name of the butterfly, which is the same. Besides that, also the link building, which means if we create a press release talking about the brand, the women, the founder, and the products from a LLM AI SEO perspective, it's going to segment that category from this entity. We have the same name. Let's use the example of Apple. Apple the brand, Apple the fruit. All the terms related to the fruit apple are going to be different from the Apple the brand. The only name is going to be the entity. It's all the same. So that would be the approach.
I'm curious about the press release strategy because I use them a lot. So I'm curious to see how you use them. Are you are you using sort of like maybe a US normal provider that gets you in Yahoo and just all the typical big things, or are you using a local from Spain sort of press release service to try to make it more local?
Yes, we use
And in Spanish?
media in Spanish where we think the potential customer are there, like fashions, newspapers that talk about fashion, because most users are women and most of the consumers are women in the jewelry industry. And we segment that way. Or
it's much more like a digital PR thing. Like you want to appear in editorially and targeted websites. You're not blasting out a press release. That's syndication, basically. That's
yeah. Let's say another example with more simple, possibly. Another client is an insurance, and more than 75% of the clients are men. And the two key products are insurance for cars. So we advertise in media sites where the customer are men, motor sites, car sites, motorbike sites, all this stuff. So the ads, when they show up in those big platforms, you get the brand, you get the product, and users, instead of clicking in the banner, they go to Google and search for the product and search for the brand of the product. And we get a lot of traction that way. The same approach is the one we use in all projects.
You're basically using advertising and social media, whether it's organic or paid,
yes,
to trigger user behavior that they will search for the brand plus whatever the product you want to sell, service you want to sell. And that's how you increase brand search.
Correct. Yeah. So, because humans are very interesting. I mean, the insurance company created a new brand, and they provide an interface to compare prices with their brokers, and they provide the logo and the name of the brand that provide the service. So they started a new brand from scratch, no link building, nothing. And in the interface, when you show up the table with the prices and discount, all this stuff, when people are not aware of the brand or they don't know the name, when they see the logo and the name, they go to Google and search and start the search. And we've seen that over the last year how brand searches are growing steadily because that new brand show up more and more frequently in the prices. So more and more people see the brand, but they're not aware that what this brand is about. I've never seen this brand. I'm going to Google. I'm going to search for real information about that brand. That is, from my opinion, the new link building, because it is very trustworthy for Google when they see the growth naturally from a brand, because it's not based on link building, it's not based on artificial things, it's real humans typing on Google. It's very hard to fake that signal, especially when you do it for a long period of time and the growth is systematic rather than in a short period of time and very artificial.
And if people haven't seen this on their own websites or seen these different cases, when you get branded search plus a term that you care about, that is the holy grail of it. Like, one thing is brand search. Okay, you're a real business, you're not a scammer, whatever. But when you get associated brand search plus service plus product, that's what really makes the difference ranking wise in that category. Like, it's just a big deal. Okay, so
That's because
that's
in Semantic SEO, that concept is query augmentation, which means imagine that your site is surrounded by a nebula of terms, and you get the one you mentioned, which is brand plus product. And when Google trusts that term, which is your product, give you more trust and expand the terms you rank for. That's the reason.
yeah. It's query augmentation on branded searches, not on non-brand searches, which is the usual way you discuss that term. Like, how can I start ranking for this variation of this thing that I'm sort of thinking about ranking? So that's the branded side of things. Let's say you've successfully disambiguated this jewelry store from the butterfly, from the animal. But what are you doing now for the pure non-brand searches where people are trying to find specific products? What are you doing there on those collection and product pages? What information are you putting on each to try to increase that non-brand performance?
The recommendation is going to sound a little bit odd, but I'm going to share it anyway. This is the second year we work with this online jewelry company. And what I do is every day I go to the gym, I ask questions to women, like choker, for instance. I didn't know what a choker was 1.5 years ago. And I start a conversation with women, and it's getting very popular. And you ask them questions, I tell you everything, which is, in my opinion, the best way. You don't need keyword research anymore. You just go out and ask real people, your real customers, why they search that way. Have they found what they're looking for? Why they click in the third and the fourth result rather than the first one? And once you do it for a long time, you get an idea, a better idea than the SEO tools give to you. So you use different words, more terms, all this stuff. So, but not only in that industry, it's everywhere. It's in all industries. And the good things about semantic search engines is language agnostic, because at the end of the day, everything is data, and data have no language. So I'm working with a project in Germany, and I don't speak German. The site is German and English, but I don't need to speak German. That was unthinkable like 15, 20 years ago. If you don't, 15, 20 years ago, if you didn't speak the language, it was really hard. Now you can rank any site in any language if you know the core principles of SEO. Because not only by the fact you can use Google Translator, because technical SEO is universal and semantic SEO is universal. You can define the strategy in English and then reproduce it, the strategy in all languages. So, and on top of that, the communication, English is the glue. English is the language most people use in the world. So with English, you can rank almost any site if you know the principles, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. You might need to learn maybe a specific word that is used locally, but besides that, maybe that's a good start. Well, I've never heard asking women questions as an answer to an SEO question before, so that was quite interesting.
It's the best.
We traditionally can also gather information. Well, we've got Google Search Console, but that depends on the website if it has information or not. And you can ask customers, which is extremely helpful. If a brand has a customer service team, there's so much information there.
Yes.
What we are more used to, though, is to look at search results. But I don't think everyone looks at search results the same. How are you getting information from search results? What are you looking at? What patterns are you trying to find? And how are you maybe choosing these words that you mentioned before, like buy is important, online is important, women is important. You could think, okay, these are just gold rings. I could just do gold rings. But you figured out these other questions were important too. What are you looking when you look at search results? What patterns are you finding?
I'm gonna combine here probably several concepts. Doing a regular analysis, I check the SERPs. And recently I saw, especially in the jewelry niche, that Google show up way more pictures on the SERPs with the snippet. And I did the analysis and we didn't have images in the Twitter card, Open Graph, and structured data for collections. We only have it for products. One optimization was not only the image, include the image in the collection pages for Twitter card and Open Graph, but also make let's say you can use several techniques, but the image itself show the product. But you could provide more signals like the logo of the brand plus text to make the signal stronger. And you merge the brand signals with the logo plus the text. Why? Because algorithms read text and parse the image as well. So, but this is only an angle you can attack, but also in the SERPs, not only you can see the visual part, but also you can spot patterns, terms, bold letters in the snippets, the frequency of the terms in those results, and related searches.
You're looking at bolded text. You're looking at all these phrases that sort of you can find it. Where are you putting them across how many pages? Or how are you using the information? How are you using this information that you're gathering, whether from actual users to looking at search results?
Well, this is I'm going to mention two terms from the semantic SEO, let's say, information, which is statistical linguistic and distributional semantics. Statistical linguistic is the frequency of the word in the overall site. And distributional semantics is in which pages those terms are present and why. So it makes sense that in the online jewelry site, if the page is about ring, the word ring is there. And if the ring is made of gold, the word gold is there. And then in proportion in the overall site, you're gonna get an overall idea of all the products and collection about that online site. But the point is, this is a statistical linguistic, which means the word is there, and statistically, the percentage of pages with the word ring is there, is present. A semantic search engine can parse it. But the distributional semantics means where that term is located in the page. I mean, I often use the analogy of you're not gonna use perfume and put it in your feet. The perfume have a specific place you're gonna use. You're gonna put the perfume. The same way it is with the terms. So in semantic SEO, not only is important the word is there, but also the location on the page. That would be the concept of a statistical linguistic and distributional semantics. On top of that, let's say I'm going to switch now from the insurance company. Even though it is, let's say, implicit that when someone type on Google, buy insurance, they're going to buy online. But just the fact that the word online is there give you a boost compared to the site that don't have the word online, even though both intents are the same, buy insurance online. But the user that don't type the word online, they also want an insurance because they're typing in Google, buy insurance. It doesn't make sense that you search buy insurance and then you go physically somewhere to buy that insurance. So these kind of teeny tiny details compounds over time. And not only for, again, implicit word, but not only for explicit terms, but implicit terms, which means a totally different example. From local SEO, going back to the example you mentioned in the e-commerce, it's not the same product if you want to sell something from inside the house than outside the house. For instance, a lamp is a product for inside the house. But when you're describing the product, there is a specific lamps for specific rooms in the house. Just including those words in the description are going to help you from a semantic point of view. Because let's say, I'm not going to mention any brand, but let's say you want a lamp to read during the night. There's different kind of lamps, and then it's likely you're going to want either you're going to read in the sofa or in the bed or in somewhere else. But it doesn't make sense to have a lamp in the bathroom. So all those teeny tiny descriptions, especially from local SEO products or local SEO services, if you're let's say an electrician and you're describing your services, unless you're an expert in both services to fix issues from the electrician inside the house and outside the house, high voltage and low voltage, let's say, all those teeny tiny details matter from a semantic search engine and in the segmentation overall. Because we as an SEOs don't think, we are not in our client's head. You cannot imagine how they search, because you are biased by the information you have. And most of the time, most SEOs are biased by the information they got from SEO tools, because they don't go deeper, and they don't keep asking questions to the client or to the customers. Like the example I said about asking women in the gym about online jewelry. They gave me the best ideas. And no SEO tools is going to give me that information. So you have to go deeper. You have to keep researching.
I'm struggling with a client now, or I'm sort of afraid because it seems someone new came on board the marketing team, and they want to make everything minimal, very, very minimal. And to the point where, for example, it's a fashion brand, and I use the word women on every page, because in fashion, there's usually the product plus for women, or women and then the product. And that was a site-wide strategy that has worked extremely well. But they are like, we are only a women brand, so it's irrelevant for that word to be there. And I'm like,
Not irrelevant.
it's
No, it's not
not.
irrelevant.
It's not. It's going to make a big difference. The whole strategy was initially built on top of that. What will you say to that, Fez?
Well, I have exactly the same issue with the clients, the German client. I've been working with them for several months, and I'm not going to mention the word, but let's say that the word, if you translate it from English to German, could have negative connotation, and they don't want to be associated with that word. And I said, okay, but you can do jiu-jitsu, which means you can use that word to make you stronger, not weaker. So instead of removing the word women in your case, I would use the word women to make the brand or the message to the market stronger. Only for this kind of women. This product is for this kind of women. And then include the word women plus an adjective or a description that you mention. Yeah, because in fashion, I remember a long time ago, I worked with a fashion brand. Most fashion sites have almost no text. It's just the product, and that's it. It makes sense, but you can use the semantics with the structured data with JSON-LD and put it. It's not visible for the user; it's visible for the bots. So I would go granular with JSON-LD and structured data, because you're going to feed the bots, but the user are not going to see anything. And then include the words in the title, in the description, and all this stuff. I mean, for a long time, the description was not a ranking factor, but what if now AI get that data and feed the bots? So you can use the traditional SEO ranking factor plus the description, which is kind of, or what if now in HTML the keyword tag is valuable and it's not been working for let's say 10, 15 years. So
That's funny that you mentioned. I was going to say, yeah, with meta keywords, I'm not messing with, but maybe who knows? Because these things, it seems that they're looking at the whole code, so you know, um, who knows? Yeah, this situation I also have with the same thing is we had a very aggressive collection page strategy where when we identified it was a real index, we created many different collection pages for the different ways people search for the same products. So, someone might search for the same product as a linen cami top, or they might search for as a sleeveless shirt. linen sleeveless shirt, and they're two distinct topics. They have different indices, and they're going like, okay, it's they're arguing that it's sort of complex, like it's a repeated page, like you don't need a repeated page. And I'm going, well, people search for products in their own ways, in different ways, and they are not going to find them if you just have the way that you think people search for them or the way that you logically want to classify them. And I understand that maybe cluttering navigation is not the idea. We're not even doing that. But it is funny how you mentioned that some people live with an information set. They have certain information and they assume many things that sometimes the customer doesn't. And that makes a whole difference in how you actually build a strategy for a website.
You have to adapt. You have to revisit the strategy. And going back to one of your first questions, traditional SEO thinking versus new thinking. Traditional SEO thinking, it was set it and forget it. You launch the page, you put links, everything worked really well. You optimize the anchor text to get the boost. Now you have to revisit every few months because something have changed. And this is, I've been working for 6 years now with an insurance company, and we are rewriting every single page. And we have changed every single image. We have changed the design. We have changed everything. Let's say only 30-40% is equal to in the website like 5 years ago. Why? Because things change. We think every 3-4 months I check the key landing pages to see if there is any kind of cannibalization, new terms, or people search differently, all this stuff. But most businesses do not spend time thinking about this because unless it is a product which is have a short seasonality, but if you're thinking long term, you have to revisit every 4 to 6 months everything because you're leaving a lot of opportunities on the table. So
people search differently. Google understands things differently. Distances changes. So yeah, you sort of have to. I think the only thing that truly remains true is you're not changing URLs like that. You try to keep those sort of forever there. You might change the content all you want, but the URL stays there sort of forever.
URLs are identity cards. In the same way we have an identity card, a passport, I would not change a URL at all. Again, cost of retrieval. When you do a migration, you have to be very careful because the cost for Google to understand the new site you're going to migrate. Think about that. Most, if not all, of the URLs are going to change. They have to restructure all the indices and everything else. It's a lot of cost. So
well, people don't understand how hard migrations are now compared to before. 5 years ago, they are not the same as how they are now. Like 5 years ago, redirects, that's it, done. Nothing happened. Now you can destroy a business just if you just do that. When you're rewriting, sorry, go on.
Excuse me. No, I mean especially if the business have more than 50% of the traffic is organic, you can kill it, basically.
When you are rewriting this content, whether it's a full rewrite or you're sort of updating a percentage of it, I imagine you're going to Search Console and seeing these new terms that Google is giving you. How are you including those? A lot of people would think, oh, exact match, put it on the page. I imagine you're doing something more, trying to get understand if there's a new context, a new perspective, if there's a new word that maybe you can put around. What's your process there? And how do you decide how to use that information, where to put it, and to what extent, maybe when to open a new page, because that's new information that we also get.
I'll answer first your last question, which is there is a term which is query deserve page, which means does it make sense that if people search this way, does it make sense to create a new landing page or not? That's my first answer. Second of all, if I spot a new terms in the Search Console data, then I go to the search to corroborate that something have changed from previous months. And then I do a kind of evaluation, which is micro semantics, which means how important it is this term in the overall picture or in the overall page, and in which section I'm going to put that word. So to give you an example, because I don't know when you're going to publish this, but I was doing an analysis for a casino site and about the World Cup, and most people include the word FIFA in the strategy, but FIFA is an attribute of the World Cup. But the word FIFA is not that important, especially if you want to rank for betting or bets. Why? Because the word FIFA from a semantic search engine is going to understand that FIFA is the organization that run the World Cup. But the user is not looking for information about the FIFA. He's looking for information about the betting odds. So the word FIFA doesn't make much sense. It should be there, yes. But again, we're talking about prominence. And how prominent should be the new attribute or the new terms in the overall site or in the page. And the more the popular, the more the prominent, the closer to the top, and the least prominent, the closer to the bottom, are in those factors that are not that important, like description. So that would be my approach, because everything is a kind of balance and relevance, balance and relevance, and how important it is that term of that optimization in the overall site and what is going to be the impact. Because including one word in one page in a big site, it's not going to move the needle. But including one word in a landing page in a medium site that is closer to what the user wants is going to be important. So you have to find the right balance.
When does a query deserve a page?
Mm-hmm. A query deserves a page when you have done the analysis and you don't rank for that term, or you rank poorly, and there is enough evidence in the data that the pages that are ranking do not provide the best answer. You can create a new page with a better structure, not only in the content itself, but in everything, the design and all the information. And eventually, with user signals, traffic, and everything else, is going to show on top.
In semantic SEO, or the topical authority framework, people misunderstand that it's not about writing everything everywhere, that there are limits to what goes on different pages. For an e-commerce store owner, what should they know about the type of content that should go on a product page and the type of content that should go on a collection page, which they have different intents.
Yes, the predicates, or in this case, the terms associated with the entity, should be closer to the conversion in the product page. And in the collection page, it should be a little bit more informational. Because unless the user know the product, know what they want, and type it in Google, and the algorithms do the match, it's going to be very hard for a user to land those pages. I mean, in the last decade, I've worked with plenty of e-commerce, and the pages that rank the best are the category pages. Why? Because for Google, imagine ranking billions of products individually in an index. And on top of that, it is dynamic. Again, going back to cost. And on top of that, multiplied by languages, and it would be in the trillions. That's why Google rank collection pages much better, because you have to make it stronger, the category and the signals around that category. And again, more text is not going to give you more rankings. Better structure of the text. Let's say you can say the most with the least amount of text, the better. Because everything is cost. I mean, especially now in the LLM and AI era, even you asking ChatGPT or giving thanks to ChatGPT is cost. So everything is cost. So you have to be very picky. And all the AIs, if you request anything for AI, they are spending money in their servers to give you an answer. That's why you have to pay for tokens. So the better you think, the better you design the prompts, the better you design everything, the less cost when you implement it. That should be the way of thinking. But now everybody is going wild, and I'm very loose in the using tools. And my approach is the opposite way. You have to think way more in advance to be more efficient in the output.
What if Google is actually looking out for the user?
No, it's in the Google leak. All the data is there. I mean, they have been tracking users' data for decades. And again, going back to the example I mentioned at the beginning, the bot that it is in the Google, in the Chrome browser, that do not render the page. They just do a rough analysis to estimate if a page is an e-commerce or not. They run a small algorithm with a tiny cost. And if you don't overcome a threshold, they don't spend more time with you. So
from that point of view, going back to this concept of visual semantics, which maybe you could correct me in your answer, but I understand it as the way that you organize the content on the page and how you structure the page makes a difference. And how you prioritize information and make it more or less prominent makes a difference. Do you think, or do you know, because I haven't read papers around it or the patents, or I've just heard people talk about it, do you think that is going to be evaluated with a rule-based algorithm, or with like a sort of more like an LLM that maybe understands a little bit more? Or do you think it's just going to translate into better user signals? They're just going to use user signals as the measurement.
yes, so let me use again the analysis. Let me compare again the traditional SEO thinking with the new thinking. Let's say over the last 15 to 20 years, everything has changed. Not only Google, but other companies have a lot of power and a lot of data. So the traditional SEO thinking is put the keyword in the title, heading H1, anchor text, and the body, and you have 70% of the SEO. Now that way of thinking is not gonna what brings you here is not gonna let's say put you in the future in nowhere. The point is, what if Google over time, over the last decade or 15 years, evolve algorithms so the visual design of your site is a ranking factor? And they didn't tell us. So the Google API leak basically is this. The Google API leak, they track every single information about the user, what they click, all this stuff. And on top of that, they track your design, the user experience. Again, the example I gave previously about the just switching the image and the heading H1 for the heading H1 and the image. That change is more visual because the heading H1 is right there. And both the user and the bot can understand just parsing the heading H1, what the page is about. But with just an image, if the image is not clear, and on top of that, it's way more costly to run an algorithm on an image than on text. So that would be my approach. When you mention holistic SEO or holistic approach, be omnipresent means your data is not only in your page, but everywhere. And the better you convey the message, the easier it is not only for Google, but for all the AIs to understand what you sell, what your product is about, in what category are you competing, and then rank accordingly.
We've moved past optimizing a website. We're in the position where there's an entity and we need to optimize the entity. The website is just one arm of that entity and one way of these systems getting information about that entity. It seems that's how,
Yes.
how it's playing. Luis, this has been a wonderful conversation. If people want to reach out to you, know more about you, where can they go?
They can search on Google, Luis Salazar Jurado, or visit the daily Semantic SEO. I've been written an email a day about Semantic SEO for 9 months now, I believe. I don't know. And they can find me also on LinkedIn. They can search for my name and expand on all the information I share, or even they can search me on YouTube and watch other podcasts talking about visual semantics, semantic SEO, and these topics.
Thank you so much for your time.